Is it ever okay to write in note names in your students' music? Hey, if you're new around here, I'm Phoenix and I'm the tattooed piano teacher. Today we're discussing a hotly debated topic amongst piano teachers. In corner number one, we have teachers who are adamantly against ever writing in a note name in their students' music. These teachers have been burned by transfer students' former teachers before. They have seen the adverse long-term effects of writing notes into the music, and they are not going to let their students go down that path. In corner number two, we have teachers who are whatever helps the student. If they need it written in, we're going to write it in. If they need stickers on their keys, we're going to put stickers on their keys. If they need us to hold their hand and move it about the piano, we're going to hold their hand and move it about the piano. Whatever gets the job done, gets this song learned, let's do it. So who's right? Well, I am a huge believer in piano is not one size fits all. So you know it's going to be a little more complicated than choosing sides. As you probably guessed, we're going to fall somewhere in the middle. And if after watching this video you disagree with me, that is totally okay. I am open to hearing your personal opinion down in the comments, maybe from your own personal experiences. But let's dive in and talk about when I personally think it's okay to write in some note names in the music. Personally, I think that if used occasionally with really any student, it's okay now and then to write in a letter name somewhere in their music. As long as it's not every single song, as long as it's not every single note, as long as they're not getting addicted to reading letters instead of notes. If you think about learning a new language, you could just send someone overseas to a different country where they don't speak their native language at all, and none of the signs are written in their native language. They are totally lost, and immerse them, leave them there for a year, come pick them up 12 months later, and yeah, they will probably have figured their way out of a tricky situation learning a brand new language. But that would be a pretty harsh way to get someone to learn a new language, and likely they would have felt pretty alone in the process, probably pretty frustrated, and maybe a little resentful. So I don't think that we want to take that immersion approach entirely for our students learning the language of music. But on the other hand, if we tried to teach someone a new language by always putting the English word next to the foreign word that they don't know and never actually taking the English word away, they're just going to be reading the English words. They're probably not going to absorb the alphabet or the sentence structure of the new language. So that also wouldn't be effective. What might be more effective in learning a new language is to combine some words they know, in this example, English words, with some foreign words. For example, having them read a sentence where only one word is replaced with the foreign language. And then eventually, once they start absorbing more of the words and more of the patterns and more of the sentences, then we could show them a sentence where only one word is English and the rest is in the new language. And eventually they won't need any English words at all. So you see my point. In the learning process, it is okay to write hints in the music when needed, even if they're not printed in the lesson book. Here are some instances when you would probably want to write in a few note names here and there. If you have a neurodivergent student or a student who learns differently, perhaps they struggle reading notes inherently, they have maybe a diagnosis like dyslexia, or some other reading challenge that's unique to them, that you want to be more generous with giving them hints, knowing that their path to reading notes fluently might look a little bit different than another student's path. If you have a student who has found themselves in a challenging book, perhaps the book started moving a little bit too fast for them, maybe it's not bad enough that you need to extract them from that book and put them in a new book entirely, but maybe they're just going to need a little bit more support, a little more hints than the average student would, because they're kind of in a reaching, challenging book for them. Maybe you have a student who, for one reason or another, is preparing for a deadline, a competition, a recital, a performance of some sort, and they don't really have the time to learn it in their own meandering way, and so you need a little shortcut to get them there. Then in that case, maybe you're going to want to write in quite a few note names, knowing that this is a special situation. Similarly, if I have a student who's learning something, say for a competition, where accuracy is going to be really important, and I know I'm not going to see them for a couple weeks, I'm going to write in some extra hints just to make sure that they're not going down the wrong path, that they're not learning the notes wrong, because we all know it is very hard to fix those mistakes once they become habits. So in that case, I might be a little more generous with writing in note names just as a precaution for this serious situation. Another instance would be if you know that a student, for instance, is taking the next few months off, or you're seeing them for their last lesson, you don't know when you're going to see them again, then you might want to write in more note names than you normally would to make sure that they're going to be okay on their own for a while. And if you have a student who is just struggling with other aspects of what they're doing right now, maybe they just got introduced to key signatures, maybe they just got introduced to pedaling, maybe they are working towards a staccato versus legato in their two hands or something like that. If they are really having to focus on another aspect, then maybe you want to write in a few note names for them so that their brain can focus on the main objective right now. Eventually, they will be able to do the tricky technique plus reading the notes, but it doesn't mean that they have to be able to do it all today. And similarly, if you've just introduced any sort of big concept, a new technical thing that they're working on, then you might want to be a little generous with your note hints, knowing that their brain is going to be focused on other things anytime you start a new unit, things like that. Now, there are some alternatives, some things that you can do without actually writing the letter A above the A on the staff. If you're enjoying this advice, if you learn anything or you find this interesting, would you give this video a like? It tells me to make more videos like this for piano teachers. Make sure you subscribe if you want to watch some more of my videos in the future. So some of the alternatives to actually writing a letter on the page would be, you could have a note chart printed out and you could put it next to the book. I actually made this note chart for primer students. It follows the Wonder Keys note introduction schedule, but could be used with any primer or level 1 students. In that case, they have a hint next to the book, but they're gonna have to glance over only when needed on only the notes that they really need to check on the note chart, like if they really get stuck. Another alternative would be you could write in a number instead of a letter. So you could give the finger a hint without giving away the note. However, sometimes you need to reverse this. It all depends on what the student is depending on. Sometimes students get so dependent on the finger numbers that they're not actually ever thinking about what the notes are. In this case, you might want to swap that. In this case, perhaps the number is giving too much away and the letter will challenge them just enough and give them the right amount of hints. You really need to know your student and what they need, where they're at, how to challenge them, just the right amount. Another alternative would just be circling or highlighting a note without giving away the reason for circling and highlighting it. It's just a little alert system for the student. Oh yeah, this F is circled because I'm in G major, I need to sharp it. And something I do a lot with my little kids, actually I do with the older kids too, is to color code something. So let's say that they are really struggling with identifying the difference between the C and the D. They just learned these notes and they're mistaking all of these notes for C's or something like that. Then I will have them go through, I let them pick out the colors and they love doing this. What's the color you want to represent C's? What's the color you want to represent D's? And they will go through and put a little color onto the page. We'll put a legend at the top, but it's not giving away, they're not reading letters, they're reading the notes, and they're the ones who had to figure out which ones were C's and which ones were D's. So it's like a brain project that turns into a hint for at-home practice. So I really like to do that as needed with students who are getting mixed up between 2 or 3 notes in particular. Sometimes a post-it will do the trick. This could be a temporary hint where you write a series of note names or a little note on the post-it. You say, we're gonna leave this on this week, but next week it's coming off. Or you could tell them as soon as you're ready for it, you can take the post-it off and then you won't need it anymore. And this is really motivating for students. Like, okay, I really want to remember what that note is so I can take that post-it off and impress my teacher next lesson. And finally, if you want to give the student more or less a theory assignment of needing to name each note, but you don't want them permanently written on the page for future use, you could put like a transparency or a clear piece of plastic over it, have them write in it with a dry erase marker. So you're labeling every single note in the piece, but then you take it away and now they have to play it without the note names written in. I hope that gives you some ideas to use with your students. If you want some post-it templates for hand positions, starting positions, for practice suggestions, I have these little templates you can print out on colored post-its, and these can be really eye-catching, can help your students to know exactly what they're supposed to do at home if you find that they are kind of ignoring your suggestions and pencil marks in the music. And if you want to keep watching for more piano teacher tips, check out this video I made all about how to use dice in lessons for students of all ages. I will see you on that video or another one very soon. Thanks for watching.